I do think that we are seeing the birth of a new Democratic Party. And as you know, Stuart, these things, it's critical that parties regenerate and they evolve and they grow and they innovate
Yeah.
and to not stand pat, right? It's just critical in a country this dynamic. And also we've suffered a shock, right? I mean, Trump is a shock to the system, but
Right.
everything has changed, right? And we need to change with it. And I think that you're seeing, whether it's Sarah Trump Garrett in Iowa or Dr. El-Sayed, I mean, you're seeing new things emerge. It's not all one type of thing, right? Spanberger, Sherrill, and Dr. El-Sayed, right? There's just the Spanberger Sherrill positioning, which is, women who serve their country in uniform or in
Yeah.
the CIA is sort of also a new thing, right, in our politics. It's very relevant to the moment of the betrayal by Trump of the country. And you're seeing a lot of former military people and national security people enter our politics serving in a new way. So I think one thing is that I see politics as like lots of streams flowing into a big river. And, it's not one river, it's lots of streams flowing into it. And there's just a lot of interesting stuff happening with the Democratic Party right now as we evolve and change. Second is that I do think that some of these victories this year and late last year of more left kind of younger politicians, I think will allow younger people who drifted from us to see more of themselves in our party.
Hmm.
And I think that that's healthy for us because it's like, okay, the Democratic Party is changing. There are people emerging who are more consistent with who I am and my values of a younger generation. And I think that makes us stronger, right? This sort of diversity of choices, because as you know, Stuart, better than anybody, you need candidates who fit their districts and states. It's the most incredibly important thing in recruitment is to have people that are a good fit and people feel
Yeah.
comfortable with. And I have a piece coming out later this morning about this with some polling and so on that goes into this. And so I think he's got, yeah, but I think he has work to do. I don't think we should underestimate how new a thing he is, right? And how sort of different he is than is what's come before. And that he's got work to do to bring along the African American community, the Jewish community, to reach out to the Haley Stevens, crew that voted for him. He is going to get othered, to your point. I mean, you probably understand better than anybody what they're going to do to him. It's already begun. It's going to be vicious and brutal, and and it's going to be a rough race. But he has the skill. The cycle favors him. The climate favors him. The party is healthy and done well. We've governed well in Michigan as Democrats for a long period of time. Whitmer was a very good governor, did really good things. We have a strong kind of sense that the party in Michigan is good. And he's obviously, as you pointed out, he's a generational talent, but he's got work to do. And I
Yeah.
guess my final point I just want to make, Stuart, because I want to, over the next few weeks, I want you to chew on this. I think one of the streams, in addition to sort of the new kind of muscular left that we're seeing in the Democratic Party, which is certainly a thing this cycle, it's kind of a new thing, is I think that a lot of our candidates are running on virtue and character. And to your point about the abandonment of the Trump world, of the center, of a whole lot of politics, one of the things they've abandoned is virtue, character, and service to community, right? It's become about, oligarchical betrayal, right? In essence, and you're seeing candidates emerge in the initial set of ads. And, at the end of the day, Stuart, people talk a lot on their campaigns, but what they put into ads is where they think is most important. And you're seeing candidates really running and leaning hard on virtue and character in a way that I don't really remember on our side, right? This is kind of a new thing. We have Lutheran and Presbyterian ministers running. James Tallarico is the seminarian. There's a new religious left language that is, or I don't even think that's the right term for it, but a new language around virtue and character that is also new, that I think is very present in a lot of the candidates. And by virtue and character, what I mean is these are people who serve the community. They've been there as a firefighter or a union leader or as a teacher or as a professor in a university stewarding young people. These are people who you admire, you respect from the commitment to their community. And this is a very different kind of politics too, I think, for us that we're seeing emerge. And it's muscular and strong and authentic and speaks to the moment as much as some of the other streams flowing into this big river of our pro-democracy family right now.
Yeah, I mean, look, I sat around in these rooms on the Republican side when people were literally laughing at the notion that a guy named Barack Hussein Obama could get elected president. So how'd that work out, guys? And I thought one of the brilliant things that the Obama campaign did when they were sort of introducing him to a larger audience was to fit him in an American narrative. That, they talked about the service on his grandfather's side, mother's father's side in World War II. And they made it that here is proof that his rise, his ability to rise, his ability to be the nominee of a major party, is an endorsement of the best of what it means to be American. And I think this is something that weirdly a lot of Republicans have had the opportunity to do, and they just reject it, and it baffles me. If you look at Ron DeSantis,
right,
he comes across as this angry, mean guy, mean at the world, angry at the world. There's another way they could have presented DeSantis, which was, look, very middle-class guy. I think his dad was a cable installer, and he was able to go to best schools in the world, served his country. He could say, I embody what's best about America, not like I'm a guy who's mad at what America's become. But I think DeSantis is a guy who's mad at what America's become. So you can't do that with him. But it's just fascinating to me. And I hope that they do this in Michigan, because I think he's very, very much an endorsement of what it means to be an American and why it is we have these values. And I go back to that extraordinary statistic, which I'm going to get wrong here, but some very high number of Fortune 500 companies have CEOs who are either first generation American or immigrants. Where was Steve Jobs' father born? Syria. That would have been great. We could have avoided this whole Apple thing if we just kept him out. That would have been super. Who founded Google? And I think that that mecca of America as a place you want to come to succeed, and you can succeed. And it's about who you are, not and what you do, not who your parents were. Is more than probably anything what makes America unique. I mean, say what you will about Ronald Reagan. His last speech in office was an ode to immigration, where he talks about this. You could be, move to France and live there all your life, but you'll never be considered a Frenchman. You come to America and you're an American. So I hope that Democrats really take advantage of that, because, we are becoming a minority-majority country.
Yeah. And
it seems to me, you look at someone like Dr. El-Sayed, he represents what's the best of America. And look, I don't agree with him on every issue, but what the hell? I mean, I don't really think that matters. And there'll be others in the Senate and the Democrat Party that won't agree with him on every issue. And that's fine. That's how it's supposed to work. So I don't know. You look at a guy like Mike Rogers, he's such this kind of nothing guy. It's I don't know.
Listen, they're gonna, Stuart, you know what's coming now, right? I mean, you use the term, because I think this is a term that is the othering, and it's the tactical othering of all of our candidates that are going to come. The national overlay is going to be that the Democratic Party has become communist, and socialist, and that's going to be the national backdrop. I assume Trump's going to put hundreds of millions of dollars in his media behind that, and drape himself in the flag and try to other us ideologically, right? Why they work to other and degrade our candidates each individually in each of their races. I think the challenge, what I write about today in my post, which is not out yet, but it'll be out as soon as we're done. I got to finish it up. Is the Times released this kind of fascinating article yesterday about that reviewed some of the polling they did in the Senate races. They were very excellent polling they did at the battleground, where, by the way, they tested issues around character and virtue. And one of the things that we learned in that polling is that the number one reason people were voting for our Senate candidates in the battleground were character and virtue. The number one, more than tariffs or healthcare or anything else. When they allowed, and you understand this, the polling they did is they allowed the questions to be open-ended.
Right.
They didn't have a battery, right? So they didn't push people towards an answer. And in every Senate race, the number one reason people were voting for our candidates were their character and virtue. It was shocking. I had already been writing about this, but I was grateful for the Times. And one of the things they did is they went back and looked at the data about party perception of the extremism of the party versus the extremism of each individual Senate candidate. And what they found, and this is not going to be surprising to you, that in Iowa, for example, 57% of voters said that the Democratic Party was too extreme, but only 25% said that about Josh Turek, our Senate nominee. And that, so this issue that you hear in our family about the Democratic Party being bruised and we're unpopular is not relevant because the Democratic Party brand is not on the ballot. We have candidates that are on the ballot, individual candidates who we have recruited well, and we've had good candidates come out of the primaries who are from their districts and meet and are comfortable and familiar to them. And it's just a fascinating set of data because it reminds you that so much of the shadow world of our political commentary, it's like Plato's cave, right? Like it's just this stuff that people talk about that is interesting but not relevant, and oftentimes. And what's relevant is these head-to-head races where the Democrats are seen as being far more of their community. They're familiar, right? So when you're familiar with somebody, it becomes much harder to other them. And that's part of what's going to be so interesting. And one of the reasons I'm still optimistic about us being able to withstand the barrage that's about to come, because the sort of underlying structure of where the data is right now is that we have huge advantages in character and virtue in all these Senate races, enormous advantages, which is going to be very hard for them to do the swift boating and the unraveling and sort of do what they do, right, which is to turn our virtues into vices. And it's going to be much harder this cycle, I think, than it is going to be normally. And it's one of the reasons I'm optimistic we're going to be able to withstand the unbelievable $1 billion barrage of negative ads that are about to come